Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Make Your Mark, a podcast from Hitmarker. I'm your host, Adam Fitch, and today we're discussing UK esports. And now, to discuss this weird and wonderful scene, we need to bring in someone who's an authority on the topic, and who better than Dom Sacco, who is essentially runs the UK's only dedicated esports publication. So, thank you, Dom, for taking the time, mate. And hopefully, I don't give you a headache with the amount of questions I've got for you.
Oh no! The more questions, the merrier. As someone who I enjoy asking lots of questions, so it's always a privilege to be asked the questions for once. And thanks for the lovely intro as well. I'm delighted to be here, and you've described it very well. I think weird and wonderful is a good way to describe the UK esports scene.
That's me trying to be positive, you know. There's one more W word which I could have put in there, but I decided to omit in that case. And on the topic of like asking questions, obviously we're both journalists, right? And for years now, I've just got into the habit of like being really inquisitive. And I remember a couple of months ago, I went on a first date with my now girlfriend, and I was like pure interrogating her for like an hour, and then I caught myself like, oh crap, like I need to like develop a nice boundary between work and personal life here, because it's just boom, 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 questions. Oh wait, that don't make sense though, because you said this earlier. What's going on here? You know what I mean? Trying to like poke holes in a story on a date, playing mini golf. It was like, yeah, that's not the best way you're going about.
Well, you weren't asking her about UK esports then, testing her knowledge.
Well, she didn't know too much, unfortunately. So there was no second. No, I'm joking. No. Thankfully, she didn't. I don't know if I could. Yeah, like if I was in a relationship with someone who was also in esports, I feel like we'd both get very esports out.
Yeah, I'm the same. In a way, my wife doesn't have an interest in gaming, and in a way, it works kind of well. No arguments about which team's best and all of that.
Well, so today we're not here to discuss relationships in esports. That's the next episode for those watching. But it's UK esports, and what I really want this episode to be is kind of a go-to, not the go-to, but a go-to for understanding this local, our domestic national industry. Maybe some of the good points it has, some of the bad points it has, why it's lagging behind if you compare it to, like Denmark, for example. They've got in certain areas they're wonderful support over there from the government and stuff with Astralis and other scenes which we can get into. But so I guess firstly, if we look at the hierarchy or the pyramid of play in esports, it comes to publishers at first, right? And now we don't have governing bodies in esports, for ill or for better. I don't know. It depends who those governing bodies are, but effectively publishers, if you look at Riot Games, very much governs and runs its esports scene. And, it's the same with Activision Blizzard and stuff with London Royal Ravens. So I would say for the most part, it seems like the publishers that are, of the games at least, that are popular in the UK are pretty tightly wound up and held captive by those that create the games.
Yeah, you're spot on. And if you look at some of the scenes we have here in games, they do come from publishers that have decent base of operations here. Riot opened a new Reading office, I think it was earlier this year, and hired a few people. Shout out to Will Atwood, who I know has been doing lots of hard work, around the Valorant and League of Legends tournaments, and also Riot have an amazing new broadcast facility. I'm not sponsored by Riot. It is genuinely pretty impressive. They opened that in Ireland earlier this year, and it's going to be one of 3 big broadcast facilities they're opening around the world. Just focusing on their broadcasts. And we've got other people have offices here. EA have been in Guildford for ages now, and of course we have the. It doesn't get spoken about that much, but the FIFA Premier League, which I think is something we should shout about. I know FIFA isn't a A-tier esport, but that dev support, and then there's no surprise. Valve doesn't really have operations here, and we don't have a great grassroots Dota scene. I see a lot of players and people passionate about Dota 2 bemoaning the fact that we don't have much support in the UK. ESL UK did a premiership or a skirmish, they called it, a year or 2 ago, which was nice to see, but nothing regular. So it does. You're right, Adam. It comes top down from the publishers.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of the probably only threads that follows through, no matter where we take a hyper focused look at. in the world where like the developers and the publishers are basically the end all be all of what goes on. If you're a tournament organizer and you want to host an event on Call of Duty or CS:GO or Valorant, then you have to follow their rules, probably get permission from them explicitly, before ever doing anything. Because if we look at Call of Duty, for example, London Royal Ravens owns the territory of the UK. So I believe, say me and Dom want to put on a Call of Duty esports event, we have to not only speak to Activision Blizzard, but get permission of London Royal Ravens, which is Rec Global as well. So that adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
Yeah, or Infinite Reality now, probably even harder to get through to, right? A big company. I think it is still Rec Global that's owned by this Infinite Reality metaverse.
You have to go find them in the metaverse somewhere. You have to
log
into Habbo Hotel and find them in the right spot.
We'll find Odie in the metaverse. Yeah, you're spot on. I do you know what? I'll hold my hands up. I didn't 100% know that about the Ravens, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me if you need to get permission because they have their events here, or they had their homestand event, didn't they, a couple pre-COVID? And Odie said to me recently in an interview he wants to bring events back, more events. And that is one of the themes, I think, of UK sports as well at the moment. We're getting these lands slowly coming back.
Yeah, well, like one of the times it really clicked for me about the territory thing with Activision Blizzard's leagues is so obviously Spitfire in the early days in the Overwatch League, London Spitfire owned by Cloud9, they had like I think entirely or almost entirely like South Korean roster.
That's right.
I think probably like first season, second season,
and they won.
There we go. And so a North American team, North American organization owning a UK branded team with a Korean roster, but they wanted to host like a fan meetup or fan activation in South Korea, and they couldn't do it because they didn't get permission, or they were refused permission from whichever team it was that owned that particular territory they're in. So I know that must be tricky when it comes to like LA, where there's two teams in both the Call of Duty League and the Overwatch League.
Yeah,
there'll be one road dividing like the territory, like some of the teams own, which adds a bit of complexity. But yeah, you'd think from a Royal Ravens perspective, the more like grassrootsy kind of semi-pro Call of Duty events, the better if they can kind of foster a good community around like competitive COD.
Exactly.
You don't really see much, and you can blame COVID for some of it, of course, but not all. I would say.
Exactly, and we don't have, honestly, a great sort of grassroots COD scene from what I can see anyway in the UK. I think there was a small grassroots provider, AGGL, I think they were called, that tried to do a few events. There were some problems at LAN. They tried to do an event at Newcastle United Stadium, and then it just fell through. It was a bit of a disaster. I didn't really cover that drama because I learned about it a bit too late, but we need, I think, a bit more support there, especially because Call of Duty is one of those games where we do have some decent UK talent. Players, streamers, managers. It'd be nice to see a grassroots scene. And also, we have some of the best crowds as well.
UK
100%. Call of Duty.
100%, which we 100% will get to, because I've been to, CWL London 2019, for example, where I believe we ran out of beer on the first day. Like, I'm pretty sure like they were like, okay, the kegs are completely dry, no more beer until tomorrow. It was one of those kind of things, And I was working as press, so I didn't have any beer. But I remember that kind of stuff vividly, and just the atmosphere is unrivaled. And I think most people acknowledge that if they've been to an event in the UK, which is definitely one of our strong points. I guess like the football culture that we've got, where everyone's not just strictly about football, I suppose, but that's on the largest scale, where you'll have 70,000 people going absolutely bonkers in a stadium. That translates very well to esports for us, I think.
Yeah, and Call of Duty, the crossover. The Call of Duty fans remind me of football fans.
Yeah.
The chants, the banter, it's very atmospheric. It's different to League of Legends, and so on. League of Legends is very much the whatever those banger things are called. I should know this stuff, shouldn't I?
I couldn't tell you what
those things are that they bang together and they make noise. It's slightly different, I think. Call of Duty. It's
called
more
their two remaining brain cells. I think they bang all together and then they make a noise. The League of Legends fans.
I'll leave that as your words, not mine.
It's not even true, because like League of Legends, you need like I don't know how many years of prior experience to understand what's going on, where Call of Duty is just shoot them in the head, shoot them in the head. There's no real strategy there beyond shooting them in the head. So I reverse the analogy realistically. But
I was just going to say, I want more league events as well. On that note, We had this. We had the XO Esports. I can't think what it was called
They had
now.
the Neosurf thing where they
Neosurf, that's it. Neosurf Cup a
played
couple of years
Direwolves,
ago.
I think.
That was it. Yeah, and the friendlies and show matches. It was amazing. I want more events like that. I've said to Right, if you're not going to do these, I'm going to think about doing them because we need something like that. It was so positive for the community. And it's so digital and insular in esports in the UK. We need those events. I think very important.
I would agree. So I would say while the publishers on a casual level seem interested in the UK market, I mean, you just have to think of how much of a phenomenon like Call of Duty is every year in the UK. Like if you go to any local place that is selling it on release night, same with FIFA. I probably to a bit of a lesser extent, but I remember like 10 years ago, like you're probably not getting a game if you're not lining up at least for the next day because people were going hard. Like we've got a really good gaming culture, very enthusiastic gamers, but when it comes to the competitive side, it doesn't seem like there's that much initiative to try and activate the local market too much. It's more so you meet us halfway and celebrate the European leagues and stuff. Yeah. And maybe that's because esports just isn't at the point, where or at the stage where developers have fleshed out their teams enough to be able to focus on like national markets too much. Like that's why Carmine Corp are running their own events and stuff, as opposed to it's not Riot's local French division doing it, for example.
You've highlighted a great point. There is a bit of a disconnect between the popularity of those big console games or big games in the UK, because Call of Duty and FIFA are the two biggest selling games in the UK in terms of game sales of the franchises over the years. And yet that doesn't always translate into the esports side of things. But saying that, we do have some excellent FIFA talent from the UK, some really good players. And it shows my age. You talk about the midnight launches. I was at the Modern Warfare 2 2009 midnight launch at Game Station in Basildon. I've still got pictures of that somewhere. We need to tap into that. Whether it's grassroots events, you could have little esports tournaments at those openings, at those midnight openings, and things around the UK. Belong have tried to do it.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. Belong, and now it's owned by another company based in the US, Vindex, I think it is. But they still have those Belong stores here. And I like what they're doing, but it is very grassroots. You don't get many eyeballs watching those lower tier tournaments.
And I had like a black card to the Belong in Scunthorpe, so I had like free access for a year. I believe I was one of only 2 people in the country to have a black card, and that's because I interviewed Sundance, who like co-founded Vindex for Esports Insider when I worked there, and I said you'll never open one in Scunthorpe. And then when they announced they were opening one in Scunthorpe, they used me in like the tweet and stuff like that, and hooked brilliant. Me up. So I would go there with friends and stuff when they'd come back to Scunthorpe from university, and we'd go play, and it was never really that busy. And if so, it would be like younger kids playing Rocket League or Fortnite or something, as opposed to a bunch of like 25-year-olds going and playing COD and like doing full call outs and stuff, like I still don't think it's easy to replace the convenience of being able to play at home. I almost don't think you're not really going to leave the house to go play games unless you don't have the ability to play at home, which with a console and where we are in life now, like everyone's basically got one, or a decent enough PC or laptop where they can run like basic games. So there are obvious challenges there, but still it's great to see the investment in infrastructure around, like, even if it's just like a pipeline into introducing them to more competitive elements of gaming, I guess, at least letting them know that, you can compete for £100 here, £200 there, and get together and have some people watching behind you and stuff, and see if people are into that kind of dynamic, I suppose.
It'd be nice to have more regional support in game clients. You load up League of Legends. They did do this a little bit. I wrote a few articles for Riot ages ago, 6-7 years ago. It appeared in the game client. Oh, look, it's the UK finals, the ESL finals this weekend. It'd be nice if, I'm sure Riot can do that. If they know someone's logged in Spain, then it comes up with the Spanish LVP finals or an info on an event you can go to. If you're in the UK, it comes up with whatever, a Neosurf Cup or whatever. And the challenges you mentioned there as well, Adam, around everyone, a lot of people have consoles and PCs at home and don't need to go outside. This challenge has been around for decades, because this is the same challenge that took people out of the arcade centres when Time Crisis came out on the PlayStation and House of the Dead came out on the Dreamcast decades ago, and it killed arcades. And I miss that. You know, the London Trocadero was home to a lot of the top UK Street Fighter players now. That's where they plied their trade. Some of those London-based Street Fighters, we don't really have that
No,
anymore. It's
no.
sad. It's
It
sad
is
to
tough,
see.
and partly we're just like a more online world now, right? So I guess part of it is just how things are set up. But who knows? Maybe in 5-10 years, whereas it belong on every high street, effectively in every small town and big city alike, um, and gaming just becomes less stigmatized around like, oh, you're wasting your time by doing that.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll get to a point where there's a bit of a rebirth around that kind of I don't know,
yeah,
as you explained, everyone going to one singular place to compete against each other. Obviously that's what the pipe dream is for Vindex, which
yeah.
is obviously founded by the former MLG folks. So I
I
think they've
think
got the
that
head
will
switched on.
happen. I think it will happen. I think we need to make events trendy again. We need to make going out cool again. Because
Mm.
at the moment, I get the impression it's cool to do streams and to hang about on Twitter and on Discord.
Yeah,
And
well,
I'm old school.
I prefer being uncool in that sense, and because I like leaving my house.
Good,
Whereas
good,
a lot
good.
of people don't like leaving the house at this point. I think it's just, I mean, they'll only go out when they have to. But shifting a little bit, or even just going down the pyramid, the next step is
Yeah.
TOs, and now this partially bleeds into publishers anyway because half of them run their own stuff.
Yes.
It's only like basically the likes of Valve on a top tier basis that don't. But I would say it's twofold, this topic, because we've got the big TOs, the big tournament operators. So if you look at ESL, it's a bit of a weird one there with ESL UK. I
Yeah.
saw like James Dean changed his role. He's part of the bigger ESL Face It group outfit again. And
Yeah.
there was all the
It's,
layoffs and stuff with Heather and Rob starting their own things, which we will get to.
mm,
So outside of it, obviously they're the biggest. You've got PGL. They don't really care about UK. Other TOs who we got, Face It.
Face It and
Uh,
Blast, I think, have UK offices,
yeah.
studio and stuff. So it's good to see them supporting.
Has there been a Blast London event?
There
I can't
have
think
been
of one.
things that they've held out of their studio. I know they did quite a few things during COVID, but
Right.
you know what? It's a good point. I don't think, from what I can remember, there being a public event at the Blast London Studios, unless I've missed
No.
it. Where it's open to the public. No, it tends to be more studio focused, and
Yeah. Yeah.
even like the ESL UK Premiership finals from years ago. You didn't have tons and tons of people there. The
No.
biggest ones were where they held them at MCM Expo or EGX. You'd get
Right.
hundreds of people. You'd get all people walking past and watching the finals. That was great.
But that wasn't necessarily people going to watch the event. It was going to the wider event and then
Yeah,
discovering it from
exactly.
there, which doesn't seem like such a bad idea. Like because like nerd culture's bleeding into each other entirely. Like,
Yeah,
what I mean, like if you like anime and esports, like there's a cross section for you. You'll be into Overwatch and League and Valorant probably because
exactly.
those communities are very interwoven. I feel like. And cosplays definitely,
Just going to
like
say
there's even a
cosplay.
cosplay of the year awards at the esports awards, which I still don't understand. I remember getting into a little public tussle with the CEO about that because it doesn't make any sense to me when it's just a character from a game. But regardless,
It's
like
not
that shows
esports.
it's integrated at least.
Exactly. Yeah, there's crossover, isn't there? And I
Yeah.
like that at events. You will get cosplayers again. EGX, Insomnia. You don't get
Mm-hmm.
tons of cosplayers there, but they do have their cosplay championship. We did a little article on it. We haven't really written about cosplay before, but I do. Some of those people, they're really talented. So
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it's a competition, but a different kind.
Yeah, yeah. But it's definitely part of the culture. So like in terms of big TOs, there's not really much of a there's definitely no focus on the UK, and there's not too much of an inclusion on the UK. I think like 2018, 2019, it seemed encouraging at one point because
Mhm.
there was ESL one in Birmingham for Dota,
Yeah.
and then it might be the same year there was the Face It London Major,
Yeah, I can't remember if it
both
was 2018 or
2018, I think,
2019.
and then
Yeah.
ESL one came back the next year in 2019,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
it
that's it.
wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't have the same kind of stature or prestige as the previous year for whatever reason. I don't know whether the prize pool went down a bit. I can't remember now, but
I
I have it in
think
my
it
head
did.
like there was just slight difference in the two, and I don't know if it was because I was at ESI London, which was in the same venue
Mm.
in 2018 as Birmingham, but like it didn't quite have the same vibe around it. So at that point, 2018, 2019, you're thinking, hey, up, like they're paying attention, they're bringing their events here. We can prove now that we're going to sell out these arenas and these venues. and we're going to buy all of the hot dogs, all the burgers, all the beer that they sell. We're going to we're going to interact with those activating there. Yeah, we'll try out Scuff Controller at the COD event in London. You know what I mean? And as far as I'm aware, they all ran very successfully. Say what you want about like how the tournaments ran themselves, say it like Face It Major, whatever. But like in terms of environment and fans showing up and logistics there, everything seemed to go fine. And I don't know if it's because COVID came into the mix or what, but it's seemingly dropped off, and there's not a big event to look forward to esports wise in the UK that I can think of now that the world's basically opened back up.
No, you're right. There is. I've written a few articles about London hosting thing. I think the Premier League might be coming back to that. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. There's something happening, but yeah, the biggest one we had most recently was the Rocket League Spring Major, which took place at the Copper Box again, because they had one a few years ago. And again, another great crowd. Rocket League's been doing really well. I can't remember what I was going to say now, Adam, what you were talking about. Yeah. COVID. But also, one of the things I have heard, Brexit, from what I understand, has put off quite a few publishers behind the scenes, because there was that uncertainty a few years ago. I mean, when, the price of the pound, all these things, all these macro influences affect a publisher's decision, I think, to place esports events here. And I think Brexit has affected things. Yes, COVID has obviously as well. But from what I heard, Brexit affected a few of the big ones, which is a shame, to see it having an impact on esports in that way. And,
a big 1-2 whammy against us effectively, like maybe like took any of the wind out of the sails that we were gaining from the previous events that we mentioned.
Yeah, but like I say, with the Rocket League Major coming back, Odi-san wants to do more around Call of Duty. I am optimistic. I just want to see more. I want to see more focus on some of those big games in the UK as well. I mean, we've spoken about this on a separate podcast, the Commonwealth Esports Championships, but that wasn't the same as top tier Rocket League. That wasn't the best players in the world coming here. And when you do bring the best players in the world to the UK, people go. Even back in 2015, the League of Legends Worlds quarterfinals at Wembley was sold out. Yes, they used they didn't use every seat in Wembley Stadium, but it shows there's demand for that stuff.
If they took it back there now, it would sell out, and they would need all of the seats. You know what I mean? It's one of those where, like, when we get the opportunity as a country to show up, we definitely do. Like, there's no arguments against it. I'm sure maybe you can say, well, unless you're like judging us against Asia, you know what I mean? If you're judging us against like China or something, sure, but like every other country fails against China in terms of attendance and fandom. Like how things are set up and have developed over there is superior to everywhere else. You look at all of I'm pretty sure like all of the LPL teams have like their own skyscrapers at this point. Faker has his own like skyscraper, and over in the LCK as well. LPL, LCK, like it's different. So you take those out of the equation, and we're up there, I think, in terms of event atmosphere and stuff. Again, atmosphere, I think we're even better, in fact. But in terms of showing up and stuff, numbers-wise, it seems good. But shifting to a more positive note, within TOs, we've got the likes of Hot Drop and ProMod working together to bring Polaris to life. So like the kind of regional league for Valorant. Two younger companies spawned out of ESL UK. Husband and wife dream team, absolutely smashing it out of the park there, and I'd love to see them do more. Get given more. I'm not saying they need to do more. I mean, more come to them.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of other esports, like let's spawn some grassrootsy semi-pro leagues for other games, other big games. That would be beautiful, and you'd know they'd smash it out of the park. Obviously, there's epic.lan, John Winkle and co. They do great stuff and a consistent source of events and grassroots activations for the UK, and obviously Insomnia as well. Some real mainstays in the UK that probably keep the communities of many games alive in some senses in the UK.
Yeah, and also, Adam, you mentioned quite rightly Insomnia Gaming Festival and epic.lan, and this ties in nicely with one of the strengths of UK esports, and that is the talent here, the broadcast talent.
Yes.
We have world-class broadcast talent, and a lot of those guys and girls plied their trade at epic.lan, at Insomnias of the past, and some of the collegiate stuff we have here as well, Norway, NSE, British Esports, and so on, and are now on the biggest stage You know, Yin Soo Collins, absolute star in Valorant, was doing British Esports Champs a couple of years ago. You know, Machine and Pansy and
Yeah,
Medic
yeah.
and Nick Scoundrel were doing epic.lan. Now they're on the top stage. So these events are so important. Please don't overlook them if you're watching this or you've never been before. And I will say, shout out to epic.lan talking about them. They do have their next epic. I need to think about seeing if I can get tickets. See if I can make it. I think it's the end of October. So I've got nothing but good things to say about all those events. And Insomnia as well, you know, it was Game, the retailer, they sold that. I can't remember if it was start of this year now or late last year. And the founder, Craig Fletcher, is back in more of a managerial role. And I have noticed a difference. You know, CSGO players in the UK might moan a little bit because there were some little there were technical issues with Insomnia back in April, but these are great events, really important. And as you say, you know, solutions providers like ProMod running things like the Rainbow Six Siege, I think Northern Premier League or UK Island Nationals. epic.lan do a lot of white label stuff for different tournaments. We have a lot of good solutions providers here, and I've seen a lot of agencies emerge as well, consultancies, marketing agencies, PR. We have good PR agencies here
That's
as well.
true.
You know,
That's true,
so
and they're kept
that's
busy.
yeah.
That's for sure. So while the big tournament organisers may kind of be overlooking the UK right now, largely,
Mm.
obviously you mentioned the Rocket League event, which I did forget, but that's all we've really had in terms of like
Yeah, it's a one-off.
top level stuff for a while now. While they're overlooking us, we've got a few, I would say, almost unsung heroes. They're grossly underappreciated, and you know, don't get shouted about enough from even people like me.
Mm.
You know, like absolute uber celebrities in UK esports. Obviously, taking the piss there, but you know, like even I don't give them enough credit, and I know that they do great work for the community and stuff. So the people that don't even really think about it at all, not shouting about them enough as well. Like so, it could be better for us on the like larger scale, but grassroots wise, people are looked after. The community has events to go to, and the fact that it's not every other week means like they really show out when these events do pop up, you know, and it makes it, I guess, feel more of a reunion and a bit more special. The fact that it's, I don't know, you only get a few a year to go to it on like a bigger scale, like the Epic Lands and stuff.
Yeah, and I think the grassroots level is so important here. You have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people running smaller organisations that really put their heart and soul into that, and you know, some of those do go on to bigger things. It's rare, but you know, XL Esports. We all know the old story. Started in a pub by two brothers, and now is one of the biggest, you know, organisations here, playing in the LEC and so on. And it's been great, my journey covering this scene over the past 7 years, to see organisations like M&M Gaming and so on rise up the ranks and do very well in Rainbow Six and certain games, and Endpoint, you know,
Mm.
started up when I set up Esports News UK, and now they are, when people think of UK CSGO, they think of Endpoint, and then they beat Navi the other week, which was amazing to see. So you know, and that's really positive. So what I would say to people as well, don't overlook some of those smaller orgs. Yes, some will go under. Yes, some merge. Yes, there's drama because there's, you know, still a lot of, it's still a young space. There's a lot of young people in it. People still learning, but yeah, give those people a chance, because I think they're the key to the future of esports in the UK.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of organisations, like if you walk down like one street in Shoreditch now, you'll encounter like three headquarters. I'm pretty sure they're very close to each other in XL, Fnatic, and Guild.
Yeah,
You know, like they're investing in, I guess, that local space, and I'm pretty sure XL had like maybe it's just an opening party, but they're definitely having UK esports people come and gather around and have a bit of a natter about the state of play of things, you know, at their HQ. And
yeah.
Fnatic, I'm pretty sure like they were hosting like esports conferences like before I joined the industry, like maybe in collaboration with ESI a little bit or something.
That's right.
Like was it a Red Bull
It
studio
was
or maybe?
the Red Bull Gaming Sphere is in that same area, but they had a
Yeah,
little pop-up shop, a little Fnatic
right.
pop-up shop. I think it was only around for a year or two, and then it was always an experiment, you know.
Yeah.
And then they had a few industry parties and things at their Fnatic HQ. But I liked that pop-up shop. it was good for those ESI events. It's just, will you get a high footfall day in, day out when it's not an event? So they probably had to weigh up what it was costing them and, having the staff and all of that stuff. But yeah, I missed that. Be great to have that back again. And also, again, I mentioned Endpoint. They did, when I started talking about this Shoreditch cluster a few months ago. They did say, some of the guys from Endpoint, I think their main sort of partner, CEX, the second-hand tech chain, I think they opened something, or they have something in Shoreditch where there'll be an Endpoint space there as well. So
Okay.
yeah, that Shoreditch is becoming a little cluster of top orgs in the UK, and it's good to see. Just quickly, Adam, before I forget, we were talking about the UK having good events and so on here. We do have some quality arenas and spaces. There's a lot that are coming as well. Dundee, Bristol, I think it's Southport and a couple of others. And I do worry a little bit about those, because it's like, well, we're not getting many world championships as it is. What we can do with another 5 esports arenas, that I think they're going to be used for music and theatre and other things as well.
That's the thing. Like the esports angle on it. Whether you look at the Philadelphia Fusion one that was mentioned, however many million going into that, or any of the other like US ones, they all brand it as esports. It's going to be an esports arena, but like it's going to be multi-purpose, and there's going to be concerts and this and that. Like realistically, it's just them getting in on I guess like what was a hot topic maybe 2-3 years ago. I think esports, the hype around it has died down a little bit now for investors. Well, it definitely has for investors. So I won't worry too much about that. It's just going to be, it's just going to be any other venue effectively that can also host esports.
Exactly.
Maybe if it just means they built it with like esports tournament infrastructure in mind. I got a little bit of an insight into the technical demands of running an event when I spoke to John Winkle from Epic.lan for a previous episode in Make Your Mark. I was like, oh wow, there's a lot going on there. So if they're building it with that in mind, then that's cool. And it's esports ready, but it doesn't mean it's just an esports arena per se, because you've seen what's happened with like the esports arenas in the US, even from like Allied Esports and stuff. The one in Vegas, for example, it's just built in to the Luxor. So yeah,
it's a PR thing, isn't it?
I think so. It's just like, look, we understand there's demand here, and we're meeting it. We're building this now while esports continues to grow, and in 10 years or 5 years when our arena's ready or whatever, we're going to be there to supply the huge demand there's going to be, which maybe now is a little bit optimistic considering how esports is going. I think it's, as I say, the hype's definitely dying down, but yeah, they'll probably be okay as long as they're decent venues and it's adding something to the town instead of competing with something that's already well established, I suppose.
Yeah. And speaking of venues, just really quickly, this isn't sponsored by Pixel Bar, but I thought it'd be timely. We've got really good bars here: Platform Bar, Pixel Bar. You go the Meltdowns. There's loads of others that I haven't mentioned, and that's why I'm wearing this. Shout out to Pixel, my little Pixel jersey they sent. They're really good bars, and I'd like, again, events. More events in the UK doesn't just mean World Championships and top tier. It's good to get boot camps going and local events. X7 did a good little boot camp at University of Roehampton earlier this year, and they got some good top tier League of Legends talent. We need that. Let's integrate the fans with the players a bit more. We don't have enough of that in the UK.
Well, I tried going to the Pixel Bar when I was in Manchester late last year, December, and we couldn't get a seat anywhere. So that's an encouraging sign.
It is.
In that it was just heaving. I got searched very thoroughly as well. I felt a little bit profiled of some sorts. I don't know if I looked particularly dodgy, but he wanted to check like every single pocket and everything available. I thought I was going to get strip searched at one point, but I was like, at least they're taking security seriously here, And we just couldn't get seated, so we was basically walked around and left, which I was kind of like, oh well, people are enjoying it and using it, so that's a good sign. I'd be more worried if we had the pick of any seat in the house,
Yeah. So
shout out to
very
those
positive. Very positive.
And I still need to get to platform at some point, but it's just I don't really travel down to London too much these days. Long gone are my events days, I think. So, but the good people who run it, I know, and I think they've just refurbed it and done it up yet again, which seems to be something they do often. They're quite hungry to make it work. So yeah, definitely go support them if you're in the areas, I would say. But in terms of, so obviously as the big organizations with Fnatic, I think you can call Guild a big organization, though they're down to, they've cut their workforce. Well, the workforce has been reduced, I should say. They've not necessarily cut them all by any means. But their workforce is down. Then seemingly not going to be in Valorant anymore. They're not in the LEC or any of the franchise leagues. I don't know if you can consider them like a top tier org, but they've got the backing. They've got obviously the Beckham Association gets them any headline they want effectively in non-esports publications. Obviously, Fnatic at this point, I see them as they've outgrown being like a British organisation. I feel they're very doesn't seem to be like focused on the UK scene at all, which fair play is a bigger sea out there for them. But so XL's kind of stepped in to be like not a representative or the main representative of the UK, but they're definitely flying the flag for the nation, aren't they? I would say probably more than anyone right now on the bigger scale.
I follow them very closely in the LEC, and also again, they've got some good FIFA players. They've had their Valorant team. Yes, it's sad that for me, it's sad to see that XL and Guild and so on didn't make it into this Valorant franchise-like league. Fnatic are in there. But it's I don't know what the future is of Guild. I don't know. I may have missed a statement they put out recently, but they did win the women's VCT Game Changers.
They beat
weekend.
G2, right?
Yeah, which is a big deal because G2 kept beating them all the time. So it was a good win.
I think I saw a stat where it was like G2's women's team or female team hadn't dropped a map since April until like the other day or something along those lines.
Like that. And it was Guild that took it off them.
Well, there you go. So Guild X coming in and doing some damage is a promising sign for them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You've listed some of the main ones. I mean,
who else we got?
We've got London Royal Ravens and London Spitfire. Again, you're right to say that you're not fully based here, but you do have some of their management here. Odie's here on the London Royal Ravens side. Obviously, they're the franchise teams for the Call of Duty League and the Overwatch League, respectively. But then there's a few others I want to shout out here. Again, I've said about Endpoint and M&M Gaming, those other ones bubbling under the surface. I think Vex Gaming have done some good things. Method are an org I like to shout about. They sometimes get forgotten because it's World of Warcraft. Mainly they do World of Warcraft, but they did stuff in the Gfinity Elite series a few years ago. I think Rocket League, Street Fighter and FIFA, I think it was. So good to recognise Method. And then I'd say as well, some of the football clubs and some of those sports links we have here. Man City Esports, Wolves. Shout out to Duck, who's been doing good things at Wolves.
Out, Ducky.
Wolves have that link with Evil Geniuses. I think it is in the US.
Yeah, big conflict of interest in the RLCS, which...
You've highlighted that. Yeah, you were good to highlight that, Adam. But it's amazing to see the Wolves logo on an LCS team. That's interesting. But yeah, conflict of interest. And then Quadrant as well I've put here. Because
HGS partnership recently. Lando wearing a Master Chief helmet at an actual event. Like, fair play to him.
Yeah, Lando Norris, I think. Some of these ambassadors for esports organisations who are also footballers or sports people, like Virgil van Dijk, I think, is at Tundra Esports, which is another London org. Who we should mention Tundra actually as well, because they're at the Dota International they've qualified for, along with Fnatic. I'm going on massive tangents, but people like that, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Harry Maguire, who are ambassadors, I think, for Semper Fortis, a UK org here. They should take a leaf out of Lando's book, because Lando Norris, he's really forward-facing. You see what he's doing. He's gone from like a streamer community, streamer brand, gaming brand, to an esports operating in Halo now as well. I think we need more streamer groups, Adam, in the UK.
Like OTK type.
OTK. Let's have more of them in the UK. We've got some amazing YouTubers and Twitch streamers here in the UK. Why don't they form up and set up their own businesses and content creation communities?
Yeah. I guess you have to share some of the dosh there. I don't know if people are not long-sighted enough to understand there's a bigger pie to piece up if you blow up that way,
Yeah, true. We've got the Yogscast. We don't really have much else here. Let's Yogscast could launch an esports division.
I'll be honest.
No, I don't. I'm not super familiar with them, but they could launch an esports division tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are some of the ones. Obviously, I've missed. There's a lot of orgs here, and there's a lot of good like amateur ones, and there's a lot of There's a few bad amateur ones as well, but that's esports, right? That's like
Yeah.
the horrors of UK esports was covered well by Richard Lewis and Sam a few years ago, which you can watch that as quite a funny podcast video on YouTube. But yeah,
Well,
we take the
what
good and the bad, and we learn from it, the weird and the wonderful. And I'm hoping a lot of those orgs are starting to improve. I've
yeah.
seen professionalism improve in general
So
over
you
the
think we're in
past
a
7 years.
decent spot when it comes to orgs in the UK? Would you say
Yeah,
it's hard to
yeah.
quantify, but
It's hard to say what's decent because when you look at those big orgs like Guild and Excel, Guild said it made a loss, didn't it, in its most recent financial report of
like
5 million.
7 mil, yeah.
7. And they are all making losses, so it's hard. I think actually Endpoint. I don't know the full ins and outs, but I think they've been okay. I think they've turned a small profit.
Hey,
From what they've said publicly. It might be, yeah, and I will say here, I've spoken to a lot of these brands. I've did a thing for Yuki, the games industry trade body here. So if people are interested in hearing more about UK sports and the state of it, they will publish a report. I'm not sure when it will be done yet, hopefully over the next month or two, but that could be a good follow-on
mm-hmm.
from this, podcast.
If they want hard data and more
Exactly.
written facts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, go check that out if you're watching this and it's out now. If not, go set a bookmark, bang it in your bookmarks, get ready for it. But and obviously there's like Resolve as well, which is partner with Williams, which like absorbed in Bulldog, which I just wanted to mention quickly because
Yes.
while it seems quite quiet over there, I don't, or at least don't hit my radar too much. That's Williams kind of working in esports, but doing it in a way where not all of the responsibilities on them. Like they're working with people who are concentrating on esports fully, which I don't think is a bad strategy.
Yeah, 100%. I have got them listed here. I've got quite a long list, but yeah, that's a good one to mention. Again, motoring. There's motor brands. McLaren. You've got the McLaren Shadow
yeah.
stuff. I've done stuff here in the UK. Let's not forget. And sim racing is a funny one because I in a way, it's like the fighting game community treat themselves, some of them, as separate to the wider esports community. I see sim racing similar. It's its own
It feels
thing.
it.
Yeah. But yeah, Resolve. There are a few other sort of motor brands here as well. I'm not super up to speed, pun not intended, on the sim racing side of things. But yeah, I'd say we're in a generally good spot, Adam. I think there are some innovations and things going on here. But yeah, more events needed and more investment. And I think diversification is important. If we're not making profit from sponsorships, then let's do other things. Let's do events. Let's do different partnerships or different kinds of merch and I don't know, experiences for fans to get involved in.
Yeah, not just NFTs and then just pull out of it anyway because of backlash. There are other things out there before you go to that level. But so players. No, actually, no. Let's leave players. That's a weird one, and we haven't got that much time. Let's go talent. Let's go
Okay.
talent. You mentioned it earlier. We absolutely boss it for some reason. This island produces top tier commentators and analysts.
Yes.
And journalists. Wink, wink. That's for me and Dom.
We do.
But one, Brexit, I believe, has had an effect on them as well. I think I saw Yinsu saying like she won't be at certain events because of Brexit. I guess you get a certain amount of allotted days you're allowed outside of countries working in certain areas at the moment, and it takes a long time or long enough to disrupt some sort of work plans. So that's something we have to kind of recognise there for, I guess, players as well, potentially. But outside of that negative aspect, like you look at the talent lineup for any major game or small game effectively, and you will see a few jolly Englishmen and English women,
Yeah.
leading it and often casting, like the grand finals and stuff. Like we can't really ask for much more on that front. But I wonder why we do dominate so much.
Yeah, it's a good question. When people ask me about this or when I talk about it, obviously, we've got that native language, the English language, but also I think it's that British charm and wit, that sort of British humour. I think people like it. People like a little bit of banter and a little bit of fun stuff. I think UK casters and hosts are probably a bit more likely to get involved in like smack talk and having a laugh on the broadcast. And I think that makes the fans at ease and they warm to them a little bit more. That's the impression I get. I know I'm generalising there, but Yeah, I'd say that's the case for a lot. You're right. A lot of major tournaments. I think the international Dota was in
I
that
think
the
they've got like
broadcast lineup.
50 talent members. I think
It's
I
a
saw
it's a big lineup, but I think there's a handful that are from the UK. OD Pixel, T Governor, and a few others.
the most English name I've ever heard
Yeah, yeah,
there.
I love it. I love it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Producing broadcast talent,
Hmm.
and I love to see those grassroots casters rising through the ranks. Like Nymera is a good example in League of Legends over the past year or two. Has gone from the really small, pokey UK League of Legends and Nordics tournaments to LEC and all of that stuff, and some talent on the world stage as well. Vedius, I tweeted a little stat the other day. Vedius from Wales. This is his 6th worlds in a row. He's going to be on the broadcast talent,
There you
which is great, And again, came from the smaller scene. I think he did ESL UK Prem back in the day. One thing I will say as well, Adam, we're seeing a lot of a link between the UK and the Nordics as well.
Yeah,
Rainbow Six have done this. Valorant have done it. League of Legends have done it. UK is being bridged and grouped into the Nordics region, which I don't mind. But Don Jake, a UK League caster and team manager, did make a point recently in an interview with me that I think the UK esports we're losing a bit. We've lost a bit of our identity. Teams should lean into being British a bit more.
there's no harm in it.
We don't have that a lot. And I know esports is global, but it resonated with me what he was saying.
I don't know, man. 'Cause I think even if you are super English, like people love James Bond all around the world, and he's the most English thing there is. Like the people love the Queen, and Aston Martin and stuff these are English brands or names or
Yeah.
personalities, but like they're globally renowned and loved. So I don't think it's impossible for a particularly English or British team to still have global appeal and that kind of support. Just because it's not necessarily inclusive of the cultures of other nations and stuff. I still think it can happen. You just got to market it well, I suppose. It'll
Yeah.
probably
And
be around for like 50 years.
yeah, I will say as well, sometimes when you see it on broadcast sometimes, if say XL Esports got into latter stages of a tournament, the casters might, I don't know, be drinking tea or, put on an accent, sort of old school, old fashioned English accent. And that works well when you tap into the humour. I see that on a few broadcasts, but not
We're
that
fine
much.
taking the mick out of ourselves. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Like we'll do it with everyone else, so we might as well do it to ourselves. So
exactly.
you know,
Yeah, it's that British thing.
it definitely helps. And even from a non-grassroots perspective, we have someone like Hypoc, who was a professional PUBG player for White Fate, which then was signed by Optic. Was part of like the Optic B team for content and stuff. Some weird shit happened with Optic, which we don't need to get into. But he basically seemingly out of nowhere, went from pro player to content creator to like the most sought after caster alongside Pansy in the entirety of a new esport from Riot Games. Like that came out of bloody nowhere from my perspective, at least.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely bossing it and in demand and could probably work any event in Valorant that he wanted. So
Yeah.
he's got it.
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
100%. Was that PUBG? Was
Yes,
that?
he was. He
Yeah,
was
because
PUBG. Yeah.
I'm not super duper familiar with PUBG, but I will say, yeah, and I see that happen. Again, it's interesting you mentioned journalists as well, because people like George Geddes went from a few thousand followers to tens of thousands of followers. I see that happen as well. People rise up the ranks. Yourself, have done well in recent years, nominated and winning esports awards and so on. That's great, and it's you get that acceptance from the community. I will say that from what I noticed from the UK sports community, if you do start to reach that next level, there are a few people that test you and question you, and
Okay.
it's that might just be the nature of getting more popular in general and not a UK thing. But I see that sometimes as well, and casters who are reaching that next stage do struggle sometimes with the increased popularity.
Well, I'm still waiting for my followers to absolutely boom like George's did. To be honest, mate, it's for some reason there seems to be a glitch in my Twitter account where it hasn't happened yet. But I'm sure any minute now it'll get fixed, and I'll go up to like 80k.
I think because of the Valorant thing for him as well.
Oh, of course,
Valorant
yeah.
is a
He went.
rising esport.
He became like the leading guy in a
Yeah,
growing niche, which is now
yeah,
followed
did
by
well.
hundreds of thousands of people. Like he positioned himself well and did the work, and has not been wrong yet, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, it's no surprise his success in that anyway, because I know he was doing little bits and bobs in Call of Duty, and I think he looked into like Epsilon once and stuff. I don't think he really knew what his beat was. So he rode the wave very well there and put in the work and the hours needed to build a network, and a trusted network at that, which is very important. So
Yeah.
fair play to the fella there. And we're at 50 minutes now. I don't want to take up too
Okay.
much of your time. So I'd say like the last topic, even though it's a big one, I'd say, so the whole educational aspect of esports, which includes, I guess, Newell and NSC and stuff with what they're doing for universities and colleges. It seems we're pretty fleshed out compared to other nations and stuff when it comes to 1 hour curriculum that we're including esports in now, for better or for worse. There's a lot of drama around, all the esports degrees, and that is a podcast within itself.
It is.
That because I don't know, it's a mad one, and it seems we're a few years off yet from everyone either accepting it or the otherwise. It seems we're in a weird state where there's a clash of heads, and people are very strongly in their corner wherever they stand. Some people think, no, it needs to be in education. This is the next step. This will help people. And some people are like, this is not ready whatsoever. Like, I'm pretty sure our mutual friend Nathan Edmonds is quite against esports degrees as they stand, as they are. Without revealing my hand, I tend to agree with him on the subject. But either way, there's a big push for education in esports, and the kind of collegiate scene, I guess we've got, the university scene is decently supported as well, right?
And that's a key phrase. It is decently supported. I think some of the education setups we've got in the UK are, we do have some good things here. Yes, some of the early degrees were criticised, Staffordshire Uni in particular, and I've gone into detail with all of that stuff. But they are looking to improve. I would say, out of all the people that DM me angrily about things, I get more students now from esports courses DMing me and sending me anonymous emails than I do people in UK sports and UK League of Legends, which is saying something considering where UK League was 5-6 years ago. But looking at it positively, we do have good support at the playing level, the tournaments, NUL, NSE, like I say, even Digital Schoolhouse at the school level with things like Smash Brothers. That's great for engaging children. I wish I had that when I was a kid playing games many decades ago. British esports student champs in multiple games, Valorant and so on. We do have good support there. And then, the qualifications. You can go into that debate of, do we need qualifications in esports? But you have to say that the British esports link with Pearson and around the esports BTEC, I've seen a lot of positives from that. I actually think esports is probably better suited to that at college level than it is university. If you want to be a host, go and do a hosting degree or presenting degree or whatever. BTEC, the reason why the BTEC is pretty good, in my opinion, is that it's a bit of everything. Staffs was, people say, very event focused. You've got a broadcast degree in Nottingham Trent Uni with confetti. There was going to be one at Portsmouth Uni around esports coaching, which I was looking forward to, and that was scrapped at the last minute. The uni, I don't know. The numbers seemed okay to me from what I heard, but maybe the uni themselves wanted more. But you're right, Adam. We do have good support here. It's just making sure, is it the right qualifications and the right solutions for students? Because I have seen a few people get a bit upset with it.
What I think is really important with these things is we're at least consulting with people who have real esports experience, not just quote unquote knowledge, because esports knowledge is twofold. There's the LinkedIn esports professional, and then there's the real esports professional. And some people think they can just listen to podcasts and speak to people like me for an hour, or pick your brain for an hour or something, and then like they hold the keys to the esports universe. And it's like, no. Like I'm probably towards 5 years in doing this now, and like I'm seeing trends and unlocking like patterns and really understanding how things are now. Like I needed all of that prerequisite knowledge to like really understand things. It's not something you can't just like come in and understand how it works and that's it. Like that's why I think a lot of the investors are going to leave with not much money when it comes to it, because there's a lot of not necessarily bad faith, but some people who came in because it was hype and that's it, and they understand it's competitive video games and that's it. And as certain people who've come in and maybe listened to the wrong people or not consulted with people with experience at all. So if you're writing like courses and qualifications and with tutors especially, I think you need people not only who are open to listen to, say, people like us, because I know I get reached out a decent amount. I'm sure you get reached out more for helping with these things, and you do talks and stuff, right? I've seen you go to
I do a
universities
few talks,
and such.
I try and help where I can.
They really need to like. It may be a hard sell to get a quote unquote esports person, so someone who's active in the esports community and industry and has been for a while, to like plug in and be a teacher. But I think it'll be easier that way around than the other way, because this is a highly nuanced industry. It truly is, and people say it's rapidly evolving and stuff. I don't think it's necessarily like that, but there are things that are changing all the time, like the Valorant franchise stuff came in, and then you look at the fact that Carlos has gone as a result of losing that slot effectively. How does that like correlate to G2 as a whole, and does that affect their LEC slot? And if so, what happens there? Because does the value go back to Riot Games, or does G2 still hold the value? Like, there's a bunch of different things you have to think about. That's just one scenario. Like, each week it seems there's a big development somewhere, because esports is just a network of sub communities and cultures, right? Yeah. So you need people who have been in and around it, I think, rather than have just read about it or spoken about it. Like authentic esports folks, for lack of a better phrase.
And it's hard, right? Because esports is so fragmented. Some students who might be into Dota might not have a clue about what's going on in FIFA. So if you bring in a FIFA caster, it's harder to do. So how do you tackle that? And, I know it's a bit of a cop-out for me to say, but I do think the education side of things would improve drastically by 20 to 30 years. I mean, people say, of course, sure, Dom, because that's a lot of the way down the road. But what I mean by that is not only will the courses improve, but all the people, all the professionals that are working in esports now that are in their 20s and 30s or whatever, will be at that retirement age or around that age where they want to give back. At the moment, we don't have that. The veterans in esports aren't even at retirement age, really, are they, in general? No. So we need those lecturers, in my opinion, that are sort of, 50-ish years old. Not that I'm being ageist, but by that point, you've got such an amazing experience in your career, and then you can give back, rather than, I've got offered a job hosting a major, I've got offered doing this. They're not ready to teach others, or they're too busy to teach others. So I do think in 20, 25 years, it will improve for that reason.
You can imagine a Richard Lewis type in like 20 years' time. He's going to be able to teach you more about esports than like anyone else. And hopefully by then he's distanced himself enough to where he doesn't completely hate the industry, because he's in and around it so much right now. He's somewhat jaded, somewhat realistic. I think it's easy to look at things where there's rose tinted glasses, and then there's, I guess, like poo tinted glasses. Like at this point, I don't know how else to put it, but like where you look at everything, you look for the crap in it first, which is something I'm trying to untrain myself from right now. But like the Richards of the world, like they're going to be infinitely better like esports teachers and tutors than a tutor from IT or game design or something, and giving them an esports curriculum to follow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Richard as well, because he's moving into some sports stuff now as well. He's been doing some Premier League reviews and things like that. I want to shout out the University of Chichester, because I think they do it right, especially when they do their journalism. They bridge the sports media and the sports journalism with esports journalism. Okay. And I think there's a lot of commonalities, there's similarities between sports and esports journalism.
Because you're covering competition, right? So
and it's the human interest stories, the rivalries, and so on. So someone like Richard Lewis, it will be, at that age, it will be very good to give. But I think he's doing something at university or something now. I'm not 100% sure, but things will improve at that point. But we're in the here and now, aren't we? And I think the next 10 years is going to be. There's going to be a lot of obstacles in the education space, but I do think
esports wider even as well.
What's that? Sorry.
There's going to be obstacles in esports as a whole, mate. I think
Yes.
over the
Oh,
next
yeah,
10
yeah.
years.
We're still on the early levels, aren't we, of
We are.
esports?
But I think for me, we've given a decent overview of the, I guess, the main components. Obviously, it's players that we haven't touched on, but like, there's not too much to say other than some are doing great, could do better. Some of them, I think, like need more support in terms of more tournaments. Local tournaments would be great for them, so they can develop more and play against people who are better than themselves. Like international tournaments, but smaller ones, not just majors. Like that would do great. But we have examples. Smooya. I'm not saying he's the best CS player in the world, but he's like, did they win Cologne? I think he won Cologne with Big. He just qualified for
I can't
the
remember now
CS
if it was a
major.
runner-up.
Oh, runner-up.
Yeah,
It
I
was.
can't remember. But this is what I want to say. I know we don't have time to list loads of players.
Of course, man. Of course.
We do have some top-tier talent in esports, that reach latter stages of tournaments. I want more champions now.
Mm-hmm.
Boaster, a star in Valorant. Win something. I know it's easy for me to say win something, Boaster, because I'm not a pro player. But I couldn't be more delighted if we had a UK talent win a major. And I'm sure we have won a few. I think even in Smite we've had some good things. FIFA, we've won some top FIFA E-World Cup. I think Gorilla won a few years ago. But I'd love to see it more frequently and then put the UK on the map in that way.
The more boasters and stuff that pop up, the more likely it seems. So that's a positive development. Like, it seems there's more chance now than there were 5 years ago that there's going to be a UK champion somewhere, or a champion from the UK, I should say. So I think things are going well. Yeah, if there were more events around, then that would help even more real LAN experience and competition. But we'll hopefully get there with that. But with that said, we've just crossed the hour mark, which may make this the longest Make Your Mark yet. So thank you for that, Dom, for your time. I
hope it was quality and quantity, and you're welcome. Thank you for asking me on.
Plug whatever you wish to plug, as long as it's not a political related thing, please. Then
vote for Dom Sacco. No.
I would do that.
Just thanks to everyone for watching. Please follow Esports News UK if you want to keep up to date with. I can't cover every single story. I'm a bit of a one-man band, but I do my best. I do offer a little bit of esports consultancy here and there, but I don't really push it. I'm very focused on the journalism side of things. And that Yuki report on UK esports, which I was very honoured for them to come to me, and I've helped write that. I think should come out later in October, or hopefully by November it will be out. So follow Yuki. I'm sure I'll pin it on my Twitter when it's out as well, and that should give more info. But thanks to you, Adam, for asking me on.
Of course, man. So Dom's Twitter and Esports News UK Twitter will both be in the description. So you've got no excuse to go click a link and click follow. That's 2 clicks, done. And your life will be better for it. So please go do that. Again, Dom, thank you, mate. I appreciate it. For everyone watching or listening at home, or the cheeky buggers listening in the office when they should be working, thank you very much for your time. We'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.